Welcome to the Mini Break, your daily podcast for the biggest storylines, results, and controversies from the tennis world. Today is Tuesday, October 28th. It is crazy to say we have reached the final month of the 2025 season, and with that comes, of course, one of my favorite events we have on the calendar each year, one of the most underrated events I think we have on the calendar as well. It's time for the Tour Finals, and all season long, of course, all of these players are accumulating victories, accumulating points in the hopes of finishing top 8 and securing a spot in this event. Well, 10 months later, we know who the 8 participants in the 2025 WTA Finals will be. And on today's podcast, what we want to do is offer an expansive preview of this event. We want to run you through all 8 of our participants, grade their 2025 seasons. Of course, we want to break down the field, discuss who has the most on the line. Want to talk, of course, at the start about how we got to this point. It was a very fun finish to this year's Tour Finals race. Going to cover all of that, as we always do here on this podcast. And if we are trying to cover a topic so broad, I like to have some help in doing so. Well, thankfully, joining me on the podcast for the first time in far too long to help us preview the 2025 WTA Tour Finals, a returning champion to this show, a man you all know best as lead editor for all things at tennis.com. He is a frequent co-host of this Mini Break podcast feed. I recently learned he comes from Broadway. It's our dear friend, David Kane, joining us once again. DK, welcome back to the show. It has been far too long. The good news is we're almost in off-season mode, and in December I'm texting you probably every other day to come on the show, but it's good to see your smiling face once again. How are you doing today, my friend?
I mean, is it the last month of the 2025 season, or is it just the first month of the 2026 season? They really all start to bleed together. But I really appreciate the opportunity you're giving me to come back on the podcast and explain to all of my the feud that we've been having for the last several months. I'm glad you finally understand that I was never trying to steal Westhoff from you. He was just working on my album / taxidermy business. This is just my housewife storyline that he was helping me with. So I'm glad that we can finally reach an understanding on that, and we can finally talk about what really matters, and that is the WTA Finals.
I was worried when you guys formally met in New York. You guys have had as much in-person FaceTime now to this point as pretty much we have to this point as well. And yeah, look, we try not to double book here at Crack Racquets. You've been so gracious in joining Westhoff and the crew and breaking down all the things they break down.
I love those
as
nerds.
It relates to Big Brother. Yeah, and my thoughts on all things Big Brother. We can save that maybe for the end of the show, preview the upcoming season. But yeah, you're right. It's not actually the end of 2025. I should say it's the final few weeks before we transition to exhibition season, which of course starts pretty much right away. And then before you know it, we're at the Next Gen Finals, and then Australia is upon us. But again, I love the Tour Finals. I don't know why we don't spend more time discussing this event, contextualizing this event in the course of every storyline we tell throughout the course of a season. That's something I try to do on this show. It's just like, if finishing top 8, because I did this rant the other day, I'm going to do it for you now. In other sports, team-centric sports in particular, you have things like the Pro Bowl. You have things like the All-Star Game. You also have year-end awards that feature things like All-First Team or All-Pro in the NFL. We have rankings in tennis, so to some point, if you want to know who is the 7th best player in a season, I suppose you can look at that. But to have an event that brings the 8 best in the world, that says, here's the best, let's figure out who's the best of those best, it's everything you should ask for in a sport like this.
I mean, I'll tell you my favorite thing about the finals, be it WTA or ATP, and it is the format. The round robin, to me, is just such a fan-friendly setup. I mean, it is, if you're a huge fan of Aryna Sabalenka or Iga Swiatek, and you want to book a ticket months in advance or even weeks in advance to see her play tennis, unless you're booking a first round, you cannot guarantee that your women's semifinal or final ticket, maybe you can, in this case, if you're Aryna Sabalenka, the year that she's had, will be playing in either of those matches. But if you're booking a ticket for the WTA Finals, you have 3 shots at least to see one of your favorite players. And not only do you have that opportunity, but I love qualification scenarios. It's very nerdy, but I'm in good company, I would imagine. Like the qualification scenarios of who needs to do what to make it into the semifinal, who needs to win the group, second place. I'm addicted to it. It's just so much fun. And so those are my two, that's my favorite part of it. And it's really what sets it apart, in my opinion, from the Grand Slams is to have everyone in one place, all competing and competing in a unique format that only features the best of the best. It's just kind of the best of everything.
That's really well said. You aren't guaranteed those matchups as much as we hope for them at a major championship, and so often we have been gifted them. Anisimova versus Swiatek, Anisimova versus Sabalenka. Hell, we finally got a Sabalenka versus Swiatek matchup, even if it was a semifinal at Roland Garros this year. But to your point, you roll the balls out, you play, and you're going to see not only a top 8 opponent in your first match, you will see them in your last match of the event as well. And certainly, I think it's even more valuable on the men's side this year, and we'll talk about that. Maybe if you're kind enough, you can come back and join me for the men's preview in a year where, okay, Sinner, Alcaraz, Djokovic, but who else is relevant? Who else even has a shot against those guys right now? Like, we need data points in answer to that question more than anything else. And you look at the gap those two have in terms of top 20, top 10 victories versus the rest of the field. It's just like, I need to see these guys play each other to figure out the pecking order. That's not the case as it relates to the women's event this season. However, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in contextualizing the strength of this field, I think it's been at least half a decade, maybe more, where you can say all 8 players at a tour finals, as we have this year on the women's side, are the best versions of themselves in the season in which this tour finals takes place. And we can debate whether that's true or not. Again, I guess we can get into it right now. Let's do this now, DK, as we contextualize a little.
Oh, I'm here.
Let me throw out the outline, and let's just get right into it. Because when I look at this field, at this WTA Tour Finals, again, for those that don't know, Sabalenka, Swiatek, Gauff, Anisimova, Pegula, Keys, Paolini, Rybakina, the 8 women we have. You can quibble with the Rybakina. Is this the best version of her? No, but it's getting close. And again, 6 of these 8 women, DK, competing in this year's field are competing in at least their second consecutive tour finals. Last year, Paolini in this event, you would have been like, okay, that's the gimme. You can't say that anymore in a month where she has beaten Pegula and beaten Swiatek on hard courts. That happened in the last month. We saw it with our eyes. She's beaten Gauff, I think, 3 times this year as well. Like, it's a different Jasmine Paolini with more credibility than before. You know, again, for Madison Keys, it's just her second career tour finals. And yes, it's not the Australia version of Madison Keys, but Madison Keys is always one match away from being a match away. And she gets hot, anything can happen, her ball striking. Like, if that's your weakest link, Kasatina's not walking through that door. Kudermetova's not walking through that door. First year Pegula and Gauff aren't walking through that door. Like, if that's your weakest link, it's a different sort of weakest link. Again, you look at the 2 players who are making their first tour final. Oh, excuse me, only 1 player is making their first. So 7 women are playing in at least their second tour final. I mentioned the 6 consecutively. Keys, again, it's her second, first since 2017. Anisimova's the new person, but again, talk about someone who is at the peaks of her powers, 24 years old. She made 2 slam finals this season, beat Swiatek and Sabalenka at majors here this year. And we'll talk about this, but you look through the catalog of players we have competing, all of them have a win either over either Swiatek or Sabalenka here this season. Like, I just think there's no weak link in this field. We have our 2 groups. We know the 4 women who will be competing in the round-robin stages, but no matter what the permutations ended up being, every match feels valuable. There's no fluff. There's no layoff. Like, the fact that Swiatek is going to face the brand of player that has been almost the only brand to give her troubles this half-decade with the overwhelming power of Anisimova, Keys, Rybakina. Like, that's her group. Sign me up for those 3 fucking data points. Like, I just think, I don't know how maybe I'm speaking to a straw man argument right now, but this event should feel like a major. And I think if you win a tour finals, we should value that accordingly because, like, look at this year's field. How can you not feel as though the person who emerges out of this doesn't gain something of that caliber? Long rant, yeah, I apologize. Floor is yours.
I would say, I mean, of the 2020s, this is probably the strongest field. And I think we've had situations in the past where you've had like 3 locks or 4 locks. But I think if you were to break down all of the biggest titles won throughout the season, they've all been won, I imagine, by any one of those 8 players. Like other than Mira Andreeva is probably the notable absence here, but otherwise,
I was gonna say Ostapenko, Stuttgart, like that. Those are the 2.
okay, yeah, but like certainly like the thousands and the slams were all pretty like and the thousands are pretty like evenly divided. It seems and it feels between the top 8 players. So I think in that way, it does feel like the most momentous, Elite 8 in quite a while. I mean, I have a long memory. I go back to that 2014 field, which is over 10 years ago. I mean, it's so iconic, and there was so much seeming like star power coming out of that group. This group is still younger in that respect. Like I think in talent and in achievements, they're really quite picking up quite equitably among the group. But I wonder if I'll feel differently after the matches, and if the matches really deliver, if that kind of makes me feel retroactively more excited. But this could just be me feeling like a bit jaded, having experienced many WTA finals before, but certainly coming in, if you were to ask me to pick the 8, this is about the 8, give or take, Mira Andreeva.
That's exactly it. And she's probably the only one you'd feel like missing. And we'll get to how she ended up missing out here in a second. But, first time 4 players from the same country in a field since 2004. In 2004, it was
Crazy.
4 different Russians. Yeah, this time, obviously, it's 4 Americans. It's the first time 4 Americans have qualified since 2003. In that year, Capriati, Serena, Venus, and Davenport qualified. Chantaruba ended up getting in as an alternate. First time 4 Americans are slated to actually participate since 2002. And again, that's Serena, Venus, Capriati, Celis. But you mentioned it.
And 2002 was a field of 16.
Yeah, and I went through all of the fields. And I'm not going to list them all and list all the names because that will take too long. Google it. You can find them yourselves. You can push me. But you also go by the era. Like, again, early 2020s, you had Barty, but you didn't have Swiatek and Sabalenka. Then you had those 2, but they were still in their ascending stages, and you didn't have the rest of the field rounded out the way again. For Pegula, Gauff, 4th consecutive Tour Finals. We know they belong here. For Rybakina, by the way, quietly, a 3rd consecutive Tour Finals. We know her best is top 8. It's just like Anisimova this year. It's unequivocal. Paolini, 2nd straight. Obviously, Swiatek, Sabalenka, etc. I went through the fields. I had 2 nominees for you. You mentioned the 2014 field. Serena, Sharapova, if not at the peaks of their powers, very close to it in terms of the gravity that the rest of the tour, they were the gravity on the tour, everyone surrounding them, and a gravitational center of the sun, that's the word. Kvitova, not injured at all yet, like just the unfiltered raw power of the lefty. Halep, maybe not quite established yet, but we throw Halep in the Gauff camp or the Anisimova camp where it's like, we know you're going to be really good for a while. Bouchard was flash in the pan, fine. Radwanska, Ivanovic, Wozniacki, established top 8 tenured players. 3 Pegulas, essentially, in the mix of that year. I also threw up the 2017 finals because you have a more established Halep. You have a Pliskova who had reached world number 1, and even though she hadn't won a major, was very good. Again, Svitolina, peaks of her powers, probably Wozniacki's at the peaks of her powers, Muguruza. That's a pretty good crew as well. But, I think this field is up there with it, maybe even higher. Again, what do we have? 5 major champions in the group, and the rest have all made major finals? It's pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, I think even in collective achievements, it probably does even eclipse 2014. I mean, in a field that has Serena, Maria, Ivanovic, even a Bouchard is at this point, a minor celebrity. Like, I think that's more what I'm getting to. But I do want to, my one thing about the WTA finals that I'm really looking forward to seeing if that question gets answered is, what do we make of sort of the 9th player, so to speak, which is the court? And that has often been a significant opponent and rival for a lot of these players. You go back to a Simona Halep. Yes, she made the final in that 2014 debut, but regularly was not pleased with the slow conditions in Singapore. I know the conditions were slow in Shenzhen. No major complaints about Guadalajara, or Fort Worth was a little slow, as I remember. And obviously there was a lot going on in Cabo, right? Cabo, in Mexico in 2023. I want to see a bit more data points on this court in Riyadh. For some reason, the finals court has been a bit slower, and that can make for some maybe perhaps less than ideal tennis. So I'm curious to see what that is, how that mixes with this Elite 8 field, and that really might tell the story. Especially, you mentioned that group that Iga Swiatek is in, all power hitters. If they're on a slow court, Iga may not be in in for as much difficulty as she would be if it was a bit faster. Say, even a Cincinnati, which she did win this year. I do want to make that clear. But a fast versus slow court at the end of a long year could spell the difference between a good and a great WTA finals.
100%. You also go back to last season, like Qin Wen just finding her rhythm in Asia and finding a zone in those conditions that few, if any, were able to match. And I'm glad you called it the ninth character, because you're absolutely right about that case. But by the way, I didn't mention those two names. It's also just worth noting, and we should value this as long as we have it, we have two unequivocal first ballot, maybe top of the pyramid level Hall of Famers at the peaks of their powers right now in Sabalenka and Swiatek, and their primes are overlapping. And we don't get to see them play in enough high stage events because for some reason this year they never wanted to overlap when exactly they were playing their best, what events those would be. This is another opportunity for that. And like on the Sabalenka front, and we'll get into her stats in a moment as we grade these seasons, she wins this event, particularly given the weight of the field. It becomes a really fun December podcast. What's the better season, 22 Swiatek or 25 Sabalenka? And this is her throwing down the gauntlet season. I do think when we look back at the Sabalenka run, and it's a special run, like we'll be like, oh, in that 2025 season, that was the one where I don't know if we've seen many players be as good as she was start to finish that season, particularly if she finishes it with a Tour Finals title run, an event she's yet to capture. Again, the murderer's row Swiatek's going to have to maneuver just to get out of her group. It'd just be like an unequivocal stamp. Fuck that first half of the season. I am back. To have those two storylines permeating, Anisimova wins this. Is she going to be everyone's pick to win the Australian Open? Maybe. There's just a lot on the line. I'm a fan of this Tour Finals. I'm a fan of this field. I'm a fan of how we got here and just your reminder of what those final 2 weeks look like. And I was curious your thoughts, DK, because I said it on the podcast the day before that the least shocking thing in the world to me was going to be Elena Rybakina announcing she had withdrawn from the semifinals last week in Tokyo, I believe it was, after she had clinched her spot in the Tour Finals, because she had to play so much tennis with so much urgency. She had a legitimate elimination match for her season, had like 4 of them, 5 of them, 6 of them, and she beats Paolini in straights. Beats ECAT in 3 sets. The wins over Fernandez and Mboko. That sneaks her in. I mean, Paolini doesn't get points for the Billie Jean King Cup, but how she finished her season to win her way in. Andreeva probably had the better start to finish year. Well, I don't know. What do you make of Andreeva being left out? Those two playing their way in above her. Obviously, there were some visa issues as well worked in. What'd you make of it all?
I mean, from start to finish, obviously Andreeva had the higher highs, but I guess it's harder to argue that she had the better year start to finish if she did not end up qualifying for the top 8 with 2 WTA 1000 wins. There did need to be a bit of a lull, and sure enough, there was after Wimbledon for, probably just being as young as she is, as much tennis as she played the first half of the season, and even through, the last 2 years, it kind of feels like maybe everything just sort of caught up with her at that point. But I struggle to, other than the effort to make the WTA Finals, which is nothing to scoff at and is very often the thing that propels players to do well at that WTA Finals, is this kind of run that Rybakina has had. We've seen players like Kuznetsova, Dominika Sibylkova, come down to the wire the last day of qualifying for the WTA Finals, win their way into Annette Kontaveit a few years ago, win their way in and then really just light up the field. So this could be a very different retrospective when we talk about Elena Rybakina at the other side of this tournament. But other than this effort to qualify, I struggle to think of it like a signature result that Rybakina accomplished. Certainly anything that matches the 2 or even 1,000 that Andreeva won. If there's something obvious, feel free to jump in, but it's not popping right now.
And the run for her end of February winning the 1,000, is that Dubai or Doha? I've mixed it up all year.
It was Dubai because I was there, baby.
Yeah, you were. Our on-the-ground correspondent from the Middle East, David Kane, also of Broadway. Yeah, again, she had that Indian Wells back-to-back, and to run the Madison Keys row, right, to beat Sabalenka, Swiatek, Rybakina, Svitolina, as she did at Indian Wells, and to see that run happen again immediately. It was just such a loud
It was a WTA Finals run.
Yeah, frankly. It was an announcement that I'm here. And by the way, get slept on. She made quarterfinals of the subsequent French Open and Wimbledon's. I know that there were notable losses in those moments. Was it Wimbledon? She made the court. I'm forgetting who she lost to there, but obviously the Boston loss for her at the French Open. That's one that you will remember. Still, like, Mira Andreeva is 18 years old. She was a perennial top 8 player for the duration of the season. Like, she had a great year. And yet still, like, the Elena Rybakina season, we're going to talk about this at length later when we grade it. It's a fascinating test case in what you value as a tennis fan, as an analyst of the sport, because quietly, Rybakina was a workhorse this season. She had the most wins of outside of non-top 20 players of anyone this season. She was just racking up wins. I think she made 12 total quarterfinals in 21 total events. Each number is the 12 total quarterfinals, I think, is tied for the most or just behind Sabalenka. The 21 total events, second most at the Tour Finals, trails only Pegula, who played 22. But like, she racked up so many wins. Again, 54-19 overall, third most wins on the season. The problem was she didn't earn a notable victory, a signature victory, till she beat Keys and Sabalenka back-to-back in Cincinnati. Like, that was the issue for Rybakina. She kept getting to quarterfinals, kept getting bites at the apple, but losing in 3 sets to a Madison Keys, losing in 3 sets to an Andreeva, losing to Swiatek when she had opportunities to win sets, or in the case of United Cup, I think just straight up win that match. And yet, like, she was a presence all season long. She never had a dip the way Andreeva dipped so notably U.S. Open onwards, where it just feels like the totality of the season finally caught up. Paolini made 2 1,000 finals. She won 1,000 in Rome. Like, her highs were as high as Mira Andreeva this season, even if she wasn't quite as good at the majors. So I don't know if I can say Andreeva definitively had better years than either of the two. Like, it was a good race. It sucks that we didn't get to see Andreeva play Tokyo. Like, that's the worst part of it all. It would have been wonderful to have all three having to play their way in. That's the part that bums me most. But I think you can make a justifiable case. Rybakina and Paolini both had better years than Andreeva from, like, totality-wise, even if the highs weren't as high. Now, context being key, maybe not, but just, like, totality of the season.
Yeah, I mean, as we've discussed, when we do these sorts of who had a better this, who had a better that, I come down to the question of what will I remember from the 2025 season, for example. And for me, that will be, I will much more readily remember Andreeva's back-to-back thousands more than I will remember Rybakina not winning Canada or Cincinnati or Paolini winning Rome. And even, unfortunately, and then, of course, it's when you do these things, too. I mean, Paolini's had a great, couple of weeks. It's in the Asian swing. It's after the U.S. Open. Like, it's just not in the narrative fabric of the season. I think we still are very much slam focused. And if you do things between the walls of the slams, that has a bit more resonance than what you accomplish in Asia in advance of the WTA finals. Again, if Paolini or Rybakina win the ATP finals, if they win the WTA finals, or if they make the semis,
Let me tell you, if they win the ATP finals.
I mean, listen, but don't put anything past either of them at this point. Maybe if one of them wins the group, that's certainly, these are things that have happened. Typically, like, you look at that number 7, 6, 7, 8 player, at least one of them historically makes the semis. There is just that oomph and momentum. That's when it pays off at the WTA finals. It doesn't necessarily pay off in the minds of pundits looking back on,
where do
the
you
best
put
of their March and Aprils.
The Paolini winning Billie Jean King Cup back-to-back years with Italy? Like, is that on the level? Where does that register for you? Just out of curiosity.
Frankly, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, like, okay. I'm sorry, team competition lovers. Like, it's just, if it's not Italy winning when it was called Fed Cup in 2011 and it's Schiavone, Pinetta, Vinci, and Arani, like, nothing. Like, it's just, there's something about the way that and it's unfortunate, the way that these team competitions have been shunted to the end of the season. It takes place all in 1 week. Like, there is just not the same, like, emphasis on it, unfortunately. And that's just, it's a victim of the schedule pinch, it's just, that would be the last thing that would play into my, unless it was like, I don't know, I can't even imagine it. Paolini would have to achieve so much relative to another player for that to be like the tiebreaker, I guess.
Not unfair. Last 3 months, she's gone Cincy final, U.S. Open third round, Beijing quarters, Wuhan semis, Ningbo semis. Her losses in that stretch: Swiatek, Vondrousova, Anisimova, Gauff, Rybakina. She's also beaten Swiatek. She's beaten Gauff. like she has had a really good, she's beaten Svitolina. She's had a Pegula at Billie Jean King Cup. She's had a really good 3-month run. She is a deserving finisher in this field. Now, again, I, too, have had Andreeva above both Rybakina and Paolini just about all season long in my personal power rankings. It is worth noting, again, Rybakina has been extraordinarily consistent this season, and she played her way in. Like, it felt like her case was dead. She was firmly outside the top 10, really entering the start of the North American hardcourt stretch, and then she goes DC semis, Montreal semis, Cincy semis, U.S. Open round of 16, Wuhan quarters, Ningbo final title, Tokyo semis. Talk about playing your way in. Like, if nothing else, I respect the hustle. And for someone who needed a run like this and has finally picked up some signature victories, again, Pegula, Sabalenka, Keys, the Paolini win with her season on the line in Ningbo, the ECAT win from a set down, season on the line in Ningbo. No one needed a catalyst like this more than Rybakina. If she's going to join the elite ranks, it's like she needed to get to this tour finals, and she needs to earn some serious victories here. Because to your point, like if Rybakina wins the group, it feels like a reset. And then you go back into the Australian Open and you're like, yeah, she's one of the 3, 4, top 5 contenders, certainly. And so that's why I'm okay with both of them getting in the field. Because it's like Paolini, great finish to the season, great follow-up to the 2024 breakout campaign where it's like, okay, Paolini's top 8. I was wrong, hand up. She proved it this year. For Rybakina, it's the excitement of what might come. It's like, could this be the catalyst where she wins this tour finals and now she's just back amongst the elite? Feels like that scenario is very much in play. So that's why I'm okay with them in over Andreeva, who to me had nothing left to prove here in 2025. Final word on that can go to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a great point about Rybakina, that if she were to go deep here and like beat a bunch of top 8 players, then all of a sudden she's immediately a top 3 contender to win the Australian Open next year. She made the final a few years ago. And that's where we're comfortable talking about Rybakina in that conversation of being in slam titles. And it hasn't been that way for many years at this point. And so, Sabalenka has won 4 slam titles since Rybakina has won her first. Like that is just, it's been a long, drought for her for many reasons. I just think that what it comes down to for me, and this is not like to say that someone is or is not a star, Mira Andreeva is a star. And so if she is not at these events, whether she was a factor in winning it or not, it's a bit of a ding, I think, for me against the field, because that is just someone who just is the, walking identifier of next generation, young teen talent. Like that is just what we want to see in the mix, whether it's ATP or WTA finals. We want to see that avatar of, that what is coming next. And unfortunately, that's not present, but 8 very good players all the same.
Very fair. That's a very good point. It would be beneficial for all of us to see the 18-year-old in this, because we want to know what that upside looks like for her moving forward again, and that's what the Tour Finals provides. It's an opportunity to compete against the best. Certainly, I fell captive to Qin Wen at the end of last season and seeing how well she was against the best in the world and thinking, all right, it's here. She's ready to roll. This is now one of the 5 best players we have. And obviously injuries prevented us from seeing that this year, but that's the sort of opportunity a Tour Finals presents. And certainly, again, want to spend time talking about this field. And the best way I know how to do that is, of course, by previewing this 2025 field, offering some grades for each of our participants. How were they here in 2025? The weight of their accomplishments, the weight of those accomplishments in the context of what you might have expected for them before the season began, as well as where this season falls in the broader context of the career we've seen from each of these players thus far. And so, again, it's always a little quantifiable, a little qualitative what goes into these grades. Why I always enjoy having DK here is we need balance. I am very much a glass half full sort of man. I grade with a modern day curve. Why not hand out A's or high grades if that is at all possible? I'm not saying DK is glass half empty. I'm saying DK brings the sort of realism you need to, hey, let's evaluate these people. Let's have a standard to this grading system. I think my standards should be questioned, and we bring in DK to raise those standards always. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think it's very easy for me to be that way. When you come in with that perspective, then I'm able to then counter it. Like if you were meaner, I would probably feel, obliged to be nicer. But because you come in so rainbows and sunshine, I'm like, wait, let's pump the brakes a little bit. But
did you ever watch Codename Kids Next Door?
I mean, through cultural osmosis, yes.
Okay, so you know number 3, green shirt, long black hair.
Yes.
La da 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 da. You like parties too? That's me. And by the way, my roommates in college, we used to do a great Kids Next Door impression, and all of us would fall into our. By the way, the finale of Kids Next Door. Do you know? You know what? We're not going to do this now.
There's a movie. I know there's a movie.
Number 1 has leukemia. It's crazy at the end. This is all the figment of his imagination. It's just oh my God.
Kids Next Door.
Oh, it's a decade. Spoiler. It's just rips your heart. I remember being a 12-year-old be oh, number 1. Anyways, I'm number 3 in my la-da-da-da-da-da. And I like to play that role, so I'm very grateful to you for that. All right. Let's grade the seasons. We'll go through each of them. Try not to spend too long on any of them, but let's start with the world number 1. It's Aryna Sabalenka. Of course, Aryna Sabalenka, best season of her career, I would argue, to date, even though she walks away with only 1 major title, and for some, that might be an impeachably low number as it relates to her grade. But the 27-year-old, number 1. All season long. She ends the year number 1 in both ELO rating overall as well as yearly ELO rating. Let me just run you through the numbers, DK, fast. 2025 record for Sabalenka, 59-11, second most wins. Her record at the majors, 23-3. That's ridiculous. It's the most wins. Obviously, we saw this season. 40-4. Let me say that again. 40-4 against opponents ranked outside the top 20, 4th most wins, but best win percentage. Second best win percentage. 19-7 against the top 20, most top 20 wins. She was 11-4 against the top 10, most top 10 victories. She also, of course, won 4 titles in 15 events this year. Wins the U.S. Open, Madrid, Miami. And Brisbane doesn't count as a 1,000, but it should, given the strength of that field, and everyone plays it to start the season. The January 1,000, we'll call it. Most importantly, though, she also made massive finals. Australian Open, Roland Garros, Indian Wells, Stuttgart, DK. She played 15 events this season. She made the quarterfinals or further in 13 of them overall this year. If Aryna Sabalenka was playing, she was participating in championship weekend. Her best wins on the year, the Anisimova Pegula matches in New York, to actually beat Swiatek in 3 sets and as definitively as she did in that final set in the Roland Garros semis. And then quietly, it was an 0-1 victory. But what she did to Madison Keys in that Indian Wells semifinal, where it was okay, I know you've been this good for 3 months, but enough. I'm the number 1 player in the world. Watch this. That was your fuck you moment that I think every world number 1 needs to have in the course of a signature season. 2nd in hold percentage, 13th in break percentage. It's her 5th tour finals appearance, all of them consecutively. DK, as efficiently as possible, like to think I just told the 2025 Sabalenka story. What's your grade for her season?
See, I feel like if we're grading on a curve, I feel like if you win 2 or more slams in a year, that's an A+. And if you win at least 1 slam, that's probably an A, unless there's some massively mitigating factors, like you don't play the rest of the year or something crazy. So, and it is sort of like the Sabalenka conundrum, because to your point, she was probably more consistent this year than she was last year. But on the other hand, every Sabalenka year, she has these high highs, but she also has these unspeakably low lows, emotional lows, even though if you were just to look at a string of her results on a piece of paper, you would think, oh, wow, she made the final here and the final. She made back-to-back major finals in Australia and Paris. But then you remember what actually went down in both of those finals. Obviously, Roland Garros worse than Australia, but 2 just gut-wrenching defeats that she certainly could have won both, the way that she, beat Maddie a few months later in Indian Wells, and the way that she's played, Coco at other tournaments. You certainly would imagine she had a chance to really win 3 out of the 4 slams this year. So, she won Miami, she won the US Open. I think if she wins the WTA Finals and if she's in a fairly dominant fashion, I would be willing to reevaluate and give her an A+. But I think right now it's an A.
Most wins she's had in a single season. Most finals she's made in a single season. Tied for the most titles. She won 4 last year. She wins 4 this year. I mentioned this earlier, but it's the key piece to me. She wins the tour finals. I'm ready to call this season an A+, even with the disappointments at the majors. And yes, I know we're past this controversy as a tennis populist, but I will say it, and I said it at the time. She was right in the press conference after that French Open final to be that angry with herself. Like, it had nothing to do with the Coco Gauff side, and that was the misinterpretation. And in the context of the immediate aftermath of a match, it's tough to make that understood unless you've been in a scenario like that before. And I like to think I've played enough tennis to understand exactly what she was feeling in that moment. She gave that major away. Like, there's just no denying it. Madison Keys was fucking awesome in the Australian Open. Like, that wasn't a bad loss. That was just two heavyweight fighters, and eventually someone had to be left standing. Anisimova was also awesome at Wimbledon. And, like, look at what she did the rest of the season for the context of that loss. Disappointing? Yes. Impeachable? No. She then won the U.S. Open. And, like, quietly, we didn't talk about it because she won it, and there are a lot of other cool storylines throughout, but, like, how much pressure was on her to win that U.S. Open? If she didn't win it, like, what is the storyline? What are we talking about for the last month and a half? And she went out and won the damn thing. So to be calendar start to finish number one, to take advantage of the first half, there was a lapse from Iga Swiatek, and Sabalenka said, perfect, I'll take the space provided, and I'm going to hold on to this number one ranking all year long. Like, she did the damn thing. I know some of those final losses those last losses at the majors this year stick with you. But again, if she wins this tour finals, we're talking about her and Swiatek's 22 season. Like, those are the best 2 seasons of the decade, and let's have a debate about which was better, because maybe number-wise, Swiatek has the edge, but strength of the field, 2025's field is much better than 2022's was, and so context has to matter in those sorts of things. In what we're calling a great field, she was the end-to-end calendar best player. A+, if she wins the title here, yes. For now, I'm holding with a strong 95A.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do think because it was so definitive in many ways, the way that she won the US Open title, we don't really remember, like, the collective, I don't know. For me, there was anxiety, like, this dominant number one who's thousands of points ahead of the field could very easily end this year without a slam. And that was, like, very, for someone who, again, who has lived through it, who's lived through the years of slamless number ones, players who hadn't won a slam in 12 months, but was still number one on the WTA rankings. And probably still would be number one now. I don't even think that if someone else had won the U.S. Open, she'd be, down at number two. Like, she just amassed so many points everywhere that it just was. I think if she'd won Roland Garros, she would have been over 12,000 ranking points. Like, it's just like an insane amount of distance between herself and the field. But the way that she was able to dust herself off and win that title against two really, really good opponents in the semis and the finals. I mean, that match against Anisimova was just fantastic. The way that she was able to play defense, like, she was the 100%. Defensive player on that court and was able to just weather the storm. I mean, just a tremendous tactical, emotional growth. I feel like I say this a lot with Sabalenka. I feel like she's always hitting new milestones, and then she finds another way to, like, put down a total emotional clunker. So I don't know what fresh hell awaits in 2026, but for this year, there was a lot of growth and a lot of progress. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how she performs at the WTA Finals, because I feel like last year it was like a question of playing to clinch the number one ranking for the end of the year. And I think once she did that, she really did kind of take her foot off the gas. So I kind of, now that that's not something for her to play for, she could just play this tournament full out and see what happens.
I have a rule in my criteria: when you're compared to Serena, Seles, Navratilova, Everett, and Graf over 6 times by Opta-Ace in a given season, like, it's no lower than an A. You're in the A range. And I mean, the slam streak, all of it. Like, this is the run we're going to remember Sabalenka for. This is, as I've said before, the spot on her Wikipedia chart where it's just orange, yellow, green, purple, orange, yellow, green, purple. It's just all these slam successes stacked up. Calendar year to year number one. Remarkable season, can go that much higher, and again set up a really fun debate if she wins the tour finals. Next up on this list, the current world number 2. Again, what a year it's been for world number 2, Iga Swiatek. Talk about the tale of two halves. And it's hilarious, DK, because I went and looked it up. I was like, well, how bad was it really? First half versus second half of the season. Second half, and I include that from her French Open semifinal onward, she goes 34-6. Obviously, she wins titles: Wimbledon, Cincinnati, Seoul. The Anisimova victory in that stretch just was a thorough righting of the ship. For what it's worth, She was 27-9 before that. So, like, top-level numbers, like, she was still racking up a ton of victories. It was just she was on the wrong end of the 3 sets versus Keys. She lost a couple of straight sets to Andreeva. Obviously, to lose to Gauff on clay, shocking. To lose to Ayala at all, as she did in Miami, shocking losses. Like, things we just hadn't seen from her over the previous 3-4 seasons. And yet, Sabalenka, number 2 ranking, second and third in ELO rating, 61 total victories, most of any WTA player, 21 wins at the Slams, second most, 43-4 against the non-top 20 players. That's the third most wins, but the best win percentage. 18-11 against the top 20, second most wins. 8-6 against the top 10, third most wins. I mean, again, Wimbledon, Cincinnati sold titles. She played 17 events this season, DK, 14 total quarterfinals. Finished 4th in hold percentage, second in break percentage. Why is that relevant? I'm glad you asked, David Kane. It's her 4th consecutive season. Shout out to my dear friend Patrick Ding. Sent me a chart. He called it the Gruskinian method. Player since 2010 to finish top 10 in both categories. 4th consecutive season, you can say that about Iga. Only other player with 4 straight or more, you might have heard of her, DK, player by the name of Serena Williams, who did that, I think, from 2010 all the way through like 2016. In a year that I think all of us would consider the worst of this version of Swiatek so far, she still walked away with the Wimbledon title. She's still world number 2. She flipped the Rybakina rivalry this year, 4-0 against someone she was 2-4 against before. She got an 0-0 victory in a major final. How do you grade the season, DK?
Yeah, I think if you double bagel someone to win a Wimbledon title, it's sort of an automatic A, and like it's almost an automatic A plus. But again, like we talk about, Sabalenka having a year that in some points like belied the results. Like if you were to read Iga Swiatek's results through the first 4 or 5 months of the season, she was regularly making at least the quarters, mostly a lot of semis. But it was the way she was playing, was the way she was losing these matches, and it was just like it made it hard to talk about because on one hand she's going deep at all these tournaments, and on the other hand they're ending in such a uncharacteristic way for someone who we were used to seeing. Once she was making these semis and finals, she was winning them, and it just wasn't happening. And so obviously a huge mental, lift for her, probably, a relief in a way to have the clay court season behind her. She could start fresh. A tremendous, mental effort to be able to like just shrug off losing your signature part of the season, having to start over on what would be considered your least favorite surface, to win on your least favorite surface, and then win on probably what would have to be your second least favorite court in Cincinnati. I mean, like just really flipping those narratives on their head. So just in all, like a big mental hurdle, because I think we go back to that Swiatek 2022 season and perhaps the difference in fields then versus now. There was a lot of, but what is Swiatek like when she's tested? What is she like when she faces adversity? There was a lot of talk of, well, you put a little pressure on her, she can fold. I think she really defeats that narrative once and for all this year for her to come into Wimbledon and play the way that she did. Now coming into, the WTA finals in position to, rack up a lot of points. And, she probably won't get number 1 this year. But again, 2026 starts in like a few days. So, she can really get to work on that campaign early next year, which I think was really played a part in a lot of what happened in the first 6 months. Not having the ability to compete for number 1 did play a number on her. So, just all in all, a story of resilience through adversity for Swiatek that she could really be proud of.
She didn't win a clay court title this year, and you mentioned it. The losses, Ostapenko, who still has her number, Gauff, who you just can't believe how Gauff has flipped that head-to-head of like Collins, the old nemesis in Rome, and then to be down a first set as she was to Rybakina 6-1, you just felt like, oh my God, the floor has fallen out from underneath her. Now she wins that match, gets through Svitolina, goes 3 sets with Sabalenka, but loses that deciding set 6-love. And you're right, it was just like, she's mortal. She's vulnerable. What happens from here? And it is worth noting, like, the misfires this year were more prominent than they had ever been. The losses just looked uglier. Things completely malfunctioned. The first strike wasn't working, and she could never find a rhythm from there, never find a physicality to double down upon just to work her way into matches. But then you saw the way that renewed aggression in her game style paid dividends when it was at its best, not only in the numerous sets that went into the Iga bakery this season, but just, again, what that Wimbledon run looked like, the front foot tennis she was able to play. And you said it perfectly, putting the fast court Iga narrative to bed as she did. Like, it also means there's next year's clay court season is just, this is someone we've seen win the treble. Like, what if she does that again? Spoiler alert, she'll be world number one once again. Like, the pathway is still very much for her there. And again, at 24 years old, if this is what the floor is going to look like for her prime moving forward, she still won a major title here this year. Now, by the crazy Iga standards, you can't ignore that first half. And questions that put to bed for now, like, still linger ever so slightly in the background. Also, it's just straight up, the field has gotten better. I probably go A- accordingly. Like, I'd go A+ Wimbledon onwards, but like C- for the front half of the year, sans Australia, where she was actually quietly good. You can't go lower than A. Like, it has to be in the A range because of that Wimbledon. And if she wins this tour finals, it's a firm A. But you can't ignore the front half, so I go A-.
Ooh.
We disagree.
Welcome, Iga fans.
Yeah, look.
I took a few months off, and now you're my favorite.
I gotta win you back. It's by the Iga standard. Like, that's what I can't emphasize enough. Like, the context of this season is in the context of Iga, not in the context of the rest of the field. Like,
that is the pitfall of dealing with these top players, is that you then ultimately compare them to their best year, and then you'll never be able to. And I think that's been a bit of an issue for Iga herself. Like, how can I compete when I'm not at this like godlike level? And she still found it. If you can find it at Wimbledon, who cares if you can't find it in Madrid? It just doesn't matter.
100%. It's also a double-edged sword because, of course, those standards are ridiculous to ask of any human. At the same time, it's a testament to who she is. That it's like, yeah, that's the standard. It's Iga freaking Swiatek. We know how good she can be. So I go A-. Wow, DK, the higher grade. Who'da thunk it? All right, next up, 21-year-old Coco Gauff, DK. That's where I want to go next. You look at Coco Gauff, currently ranked third, ELO rating third, yearly ELO 5. 47-14 overall in the year, tied for the fifth most wins on the WTA Tour. She went 14-3 at the majors, but of course, Roland Garros title, fourth most wins at the majors. 35-8 against non-top 20 players, seventh most wins. 12-6 against the top 20, third most wins. 9-5 against the top 10, that's the second most wins. She won Roland Garros, she won Wuhan, but that clay court season, Madrid final, Rome final, Roland Garros title, that's about as good as it can get. 8 quarterfinals in 16 total events. She beat Sabalenka in the Roland Garros finals. She beat Swiatek both Madrid and United Cup, which I don't think is irrelevant. Fourth tour finals appearance, all consecutive. She's only 21 years old. It's an elite list of players who have accomplished that to this point in their career. And yet, the double fault percentage, a career high for Coco Gauff, that number one on the WTA Tour. She's double faulted 9.9% of the time this season. 9.9. 1 out of every 10 serves, it's a double fault, free point. And yet, does it really matter if she's winning another major title as she did this season, DK? I defer to you. What are you thinking here?
I think I'm in the place with Coco that you're in with Iga. I think it's an A- season, but if she were to win the WTA Finals, it's a hard A at that point because, you talk about players being able to win ugly. When Coco loses, she loses uglier than maybe anybody. It's like 20 double faults. It's, the forehand's not working. She's she's bereft on the court. But then she is so resilient that this same person, these players, I've said this before on this podcast, I feel like this generation of players are just built differently. Like, these players have withstood losses that individually would have knocked out a player for months and months. I mean, you see the way Coco was playing in the spring in Indian Wells, Miami. That's not someone that you're thinking she's a lock-on to win the French Open. Like, if anything, you're like, she's a lock-on to take a 6-month break. Like, it's just not this. And not only is she working on stuff, she's working on stuff in real time. She hired, Gavin McMillan to work on the serve motion during the U.S. Open, so that was a bit of a wash. But at the same time, this is a player who I did not expect to win another slam so soon. And yet here she is, a 2-time slam champion. I think she didn't even expect it. I think it solved a lot of self-doubt for her and belief. And that's something that's going to pay dividends for her. She continues to get into, get even older, say 22, 23. She's still so ridiculously young and has achieved so much and still has so much to improve, and yet has put together a slam winning season. So it's hard to, it's hard to judge sometimes because when she's great, she's amazing. And when she's not great, she could be awful. But, again, someone who is, throughout the season has a signature result, whether it's Iga at the United Cup, it's the Roland Garros victory, it's the win in Wuhan, like just really from start to finish has had a season to look back on. For all that she'd like to forget, a lot she would be very happy to remember.
It's just, again, it's a fun paradox because on the one hand, you said it, she is an elite competitor. Others may be as good. No one competes better than Coco Gauff and finds solutions. That's why the Brad Gilbert coaching thing made such sense, right? Because the winning ugly. She's so good at just being one shot better than her opponent, regardless of what that looks like in the context of any rally. She has gotten better moving forward. Her volleys are better. She's stronger. You could see that every time I watch Coco Gauff, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that you were only 17 and you were going to continue to fill out and get stronger as every athlete does during the course of their career. And this was someone who always had preternatural athleticism to work with. And yet, like, Wimbledon through the end of the U.S. Open, like just how prominent those struggles felt, and the fact that it's still the same struggles. It's still the serve. It's still the forehand. When the things go wrong, you know what those things will be. And yet, like, again, you said it. It doesn't fucking matter because then she wins Wuhan. And by the way, semifinals Beijing as well, even if that loss to Anisimova the way it happened felt a little, like, even through that, though, well, that's what it's coming out of both mouths because on the one side, it's like she semis Beijing and finals and wins the title in Wuhan. On the other side, like, did you see the way Anisimova was able to beat her in that Wuhan semifinal and how replicable, DK, that feels moving forward? Like, why wouldn't that game plan be available to her, Sabalenka, Rybakina, and all those Serena Williams Power Tennis Country Club style players? Like, it can't. You said it. Everything I said about Swiatek applies to Gauff. So it's just like, it's the same grade, A-. It was the same scale. It's the same reasoning, so I don't have to repeat myself here in the context of the podcast. If you're watching this video on YouTube, shout out to you. I hope you like both mine and DK's setup here today. I'm going to get him. I'll send half of my junk to him, so he'll have it moving forward and will be equal. But you can go listen to my reasoning for Swiatek in that video if this is where you're watching that. Like I threw in a mid-pod plug. We're going to leave all of that in as we get better. We're going to get better at this, folks, I promise. But for the sake of not repeating myself, you said it, DK. I'm applying the Swiatek standard where if she wins this, the highs are now higher than the questions lingering to where it just has to be an A. Like you said it, 21 years old, she's got 2 slam titles. I didn't see that happening. Did you? I'm sure she'd sign up for that season right now if we went back to January 1st. But there are still questions. This is someone who, again, you said it, like, found the success and yet changed coaches like the day before the U.S. Open. That's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but it's not like an unequivocal good thing. A-.
Yeah, and when we say, well, if they win the WTA Finals, we'll change our grade. Like, that's not unreasonable for either of them. One is the defending champion and one won the year before that. So, like, it's... And coming in, either of them, to me, have a solid to good shot of winning the title. So this year is not over by any stretch of the imagination for any of the top 3.
I also said,
on down.
I think we should hold the Tour Finals with the weight, particularly this year, of a slam title in the context of a season. And if not that, I think we can all agree it's worth at least a boost of a third of a grade. And, like, that's all we're saying here is A- has become unequivocal A's if these players win the Tour Finals. And, again, both Swiatek and Gauff have done that in the course of their career before. So worth watching for here this year, yes. A- feels about right for Coco Gauff. I do have an A+ on the board, DK. It's the player I want to discuss next. I think it has to be an A+ season. How could it not be for Amanda Anisimova? Like, this is the season we were all waiting for. And certainly, I'm the first to, like, pat myself on the back. I said it earlier. I was wrong about Paolini following up with the top 8 season. Myself and many others in the tennis intelligentsia, we felt like if it was going to pop for Anisimova, it was going to be this year. And that's why we all had her preseason top 10 to finish the season. She exceeded that, even by spades here this year. 24 years old, finishes for right now 4th in the rankings, 5th in overall ELO, 2nd in yearly ELO, 45-16 on the year, 8th most wins. 16-4 at the slams, 3rd most. 33-10 against non-top 20 players, tied for the 7th most. 10-5 against the top 20, tied for the 4th most wins. 8-3 against the top 10, tied for the 3rd most wins. She won 2 1000s, winning Beijing, winning Doha, as she did. Also, of course, made U.S. Open, Wimbledon, Queens Club finals, 9 quarterfinals in 19 total events. The big thing is the signature victories. She came out and she beat Swiatek at the U.S. Open after losing to her 0-0 at Wimbledon. Just the mental hurdle of getting through a moment like that. By the way, that's what the best ones do. They get disrespected, they get embarrassed on a stage like that. They come back and they put together a performance like she did. To follow that up, of course, by beating Osaka in a really fun semifinal as well. Oh, by the way, she beat Sabalenka in the Wimbledon semifinals to reach her first major final. Again, 2 major finals for her this season. Thus, she ends up in her first career tour finals. I just don't know how this is anything less than an A+, DK. Like, no matter what your expectations were, Amanda Anismiova is just a contender moving forward, and she should win Most Improved. Like, we're gonna find somewhere for her on the WTA Tour awards ballot. A+ season.
I can't believe you're making me be mean about Amanda Anismiova. That is low. That is low, and then it's beneath you. Listen, it's certainly her best year. Like, if you were to rank all of her years, this is by far an A+ year for her. Is it a better season than, the players who won slams? No. Is it, and it's hard to overlook the 6-love final loss. I mean, that alone, I think would preclude an A+. But I do think it's an A-. There's an argument to be made, in fact, that she was probably the most consistent American player, from start to finish. If you value everything equally, she's probably had the more consistent season. But obviously, she did not have the slam title to really, lock down that resume argument. But certainly an amazing year from a player that I would say like Amanda Anismiova doesn't have haters. Like, I can't even imagine, like, who does not like, if you're a fan of like beautiful tennis, if you're a fan of like heartwarming stories and overcoming adversity, like, there's something for everyone with Amanda. She's like very cool. She's like, Coco is very cool as well, but Amanda's also very, like, probably one of the 2 of the coolest players on tour. Like, if we're lacking like bam charisma star power we are certainly not lacking in like cool factor coming into Riyadh for sure between Coco and Amanda. So I mean, like, a phenomenal year, and I only hope for more from her. I mean, like I mentioned before we got on the podcast, I've been seeing someone, ladies and gentlemen, and I did send him highlights of the Beijing final between Anisimova and Noskova, and I just went, this is tennis. This is as far as, if anyone asks, this is tennis. And it's just, that for me, so we've got to set the bar appropriately here. So like that, I'm grateful for that, if nothing else.
I didn't bring this up at the intro. Some scholars have argued that part of the reason we haven't podcasted as much is because you haven't had time for me, because you are
been going on so many dates.
Yeah, exactly. You're seeing someone, and it's not me. So obviously you don't have time for your side piece over here. No, I don't know the argument for less than an A. Like, not less than
an A. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You did say said
A-.
No. Yeah. I'm saying firm A. Like, make the case for Y- and not A. I know this is tough because you're just there's a lot to celebrate, but I'm curious.
She didn't win a slam, and
okay.
she did not win a game in her first slam final. I mean, those are not great.
Yeah, but how she rebounded is just like, she didn't beat Iga.
These players are built differently. Like, again, I think everyone was like, bye-bye, Amanda. Like, when she lost that Wimbledon final, like, so long, partner. Like, we did not expect to see her anywhere close to another slam final again for a very long time, and immediately like gets the full circle win over Iga in the quarterfinals, wins maybe the match of the year against Naomi in the semifinals. And then again, like, she was really disappointed to have not won that US Open final, even though Aryna did play amazing. Amanda played great for 66% of that match. Like, I would be disappointed too if I did not win, because I was certainly I was going for more. I was really dictating play, and it came down to, a few misses and maybe going for too much, but like, not a bad problem to have in your second slam final when you really didn't show up. You're able to just, learn a lot and apply what you learned from that defeat immediately after. Phenomenal stuff. And I think we're setting ourselves up for what could be an A+ 2026 from Amanda Anissimova. And I think she's an A if she wins the WTA finals as well, because then that is, to your point, like, that is the slam substitute in this scenario. I mean, she will have to have beaten a lot of top 8 players to win this title, and it'll then sit next to 2 slam finals, two WTA 1000 titles. That is a great year, but right now it's not better than the Slam champions.
I teased this earlier, but just to formally ask it, if she wins this Tour Finals, do over 50% of published predictions feature her as like the Australian Open champion in 26? Does she become the favorite?
Oh yeah, not like maybe not the number one favorite.
Well, that's what I'm asking. No, does
Sabalenka.
if she wins this, does she become the number one favorite?
Oh,
she beat Swiatek in group play. She beat Sabalenka in the final.
Maybe if she beats both, if she does the Maddie, and she beats both,
or the Andreeva.
Yeah, I know. It's really like the two of them. I really feel like they need to like do like a podcast. She should be on the Players Box podcast, not to advertise another podcast.
But by the way, that was the coolest part to start this out. Believe me, I cut that immediately. That was cool.
You just bleeped it.
Let me grab. Yeah, exactly.
Really
they have no idea what they heard you say was the Big Brother podcast, but just like Westhoff's voice.
Bitter jury.
Yeah. No, I just you said it. So it's everything that went into the making of this season. All the hiccups, all the false starts, all the, maybe this is the moment last year at Canada, but then it took a second. And just like to see it finally, to see all the talent, all the what if actualized. It's so rare that someone who has a window and I don't want to say misses it, but seemingly has that window and misses it, as Anisimova did from making that French Open semi as a teenager to where we were to start this year. Yeah, it just felt like she missed her window. And then it was like, oh, wait, no, she's still just 21. She's still just 22. She's still just 23. When you're 24, it's no longer still just in this sport. Like 24 is a, middle-aged tier veteran. Not middle-aged, that's too far. But you're approaching veteran. You're no longer a newcomer. And it was just like, okay, my first full season of health, my first full season of no distractions, no anything. I can just be totally committed to this sport and being the best version of myself as a tennis player. And now I'm old enough to know how to do that better. And this is who I am. And it's just like, I guess part of it is also how not flash of the pan it feels. It's just like all of us feel like, okay, she's here now. And this is who she'll probably be for the next X seasons she's healthy. That, to me, is enough for it to be a firm A. Yeah?
WTA Finals pending.
Okay, fair enough. All right, next up, another American for us, DK. Our third of four, of course, at these Tour Finals. Let's go to the 30-year-old Madison Keys, who, of course, participates in her second Tour Finals and reaching this championship here this season, 7th in the rankings. She's 9th in overall ELO, 16th in yearly ELO, probably because she played, I believe, the fewest events. No, tied with Sabalenka with her 15 events. Fewest total at these Tour Finals. 37-13 overall, 11th most wins. 13 wins at the majors, tied for 5th. 27-8 against non-top 20, it's tied for 15th. 10-5 against the top 10, tied for 4th. 5-4 against the top, 10-5 against the top 20, tied for 4th. 5-4 against the top 10, tied for 7th. Obviously, her two titles come to start the season, Adelaide, Australia. She did make the quarterfinals in 8 of the 15 events that she played. When we saw her, she was pretty consistent all year long. I have a category for all of these players called best wins. For hers, I just said her entire Australia, and I've said this all season long, but even in the loss to Clara Tauson in week 1, like if you were watching closely, you could see like, wait, something's different about this Madison Keys. Everything just looks a little looser, a little more fluid. Like she's in for something special. And then, of course, she wins Adelaide. She wins that Australian Open to beat Svitolina, Rybakina, Swiatek, and Sabalenka back-to-back as she did in those semifinals and finals. It was the only thing missing from her resume. I think there's a really fun conversation to have in November, and no free plugs, but again, the amount of insult. I swear, I'm the one who brings up the Hall of Fame, and then Ben goes and does a podcast of it. Like, I'm the one who's talking about it always, and then this guy just goes and takes our ideas. But it's a fun conversation. Like, is Madison Keys a Hall of Famer? You can have this conversation now firmly because she won that major title here at this Australian Open. And, again, second career Tour Finals appearance. Ben did say it beautifully when he came on the show and we were talking about the Americans. Like, talk about someone who would sign up for the year she had right now. If she could go back to January 1st, she'd be like, yep, sign me up. Don't need to ask any other questions. How do you evaluate the 30-year-old's performance, DK?
Well, first of all, on the Hall of Fame question, evidently one slam is not enough because my queens, Anastasia Moschina and Flavia Pennetta, did not make it in. So I think we have to be a little bit more discerning when it comes to letting people into the, or maybe less discerning when it comes to letting people into the Hall of Fame for my purposes. But listen, what can I say about my fellow Real Housewives fan who has become my best friend and closest compatriot? Listen, after having like flamed out trying to ask Jessica Pegula basic pop culture questions, to have someone who was able to banter back and forth to me about the secret lives of Mormon wives, I was like, oh, I found you, and you're like leaving soon. Like, I don't know how much longer we're gonna have you on tour, and you can't go now. But it's hard because yes, she did everything that everyone thought she could ever do at that Australian Open and then some. It was amazing. It was triumphant. It was just like it answered every question. It was the culmination of all her hard work. She, tweaked the game. She tweaked the equipment. She's got the coaching husband dynamic that's really, that seems to be working out very well for her. Like, it just everything came together for that tournament through the first, 3 months of the year, basically. And we really haven't seen that much from her since. And I feel like there's a lot of people talk about how consistent her year has been. She has had far more consistent seasons and has not had a slam to show for it. So that I bump on for sure. But then again, it's like, it really is like the tale of two seasons of this Australian Open triumph and then the US Open first round against Renata Zarazua when she hit like 90 unforced errors. Like, it was just, and that's the last time we've seen her on court since then. I see her practicing. I was a little bit unsure if we would even see her here because, the fact that, she took the whole Asian swing off. You're like, what is the health right now? What is she recovering from? So,
is that what you would ask her in the press conference? You go, so Madison, what is the health?
What is the health? I did that once when in a Holger Rune press conference, actually. He was like really sniffly and I was just like, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, no, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. I was like, you're welcome. I asked the tough questions at the press conference. Yeah. So, she won the slam. So it's like an AA minus, but it is a weaker A than Iga or Coco.
It's in the A's. It has to be because of that major title. It's it's not the final Infinity Stone in the gauntlet, but she now has an Infinity Stone.
And that's that thing you'll never forget. When what do you remember about the 2025 season? Mm-hmm. Madison Keys beating Iga and Aryna back to back to finally win her Australian Open. Like, that is just like a seminal moment for.
And she beat the two best. Continuum. It was just like the two best, and the defending finalist in Rybakina. It was just like. It was everything, and she'd won the title the week before. We had seen her do this. She'd come close a bunch of different times over the past couple of seasons, but that run was special, and it set off. It was such a fun first 3 months of the season with Anismiova and Andreeva finding their successes in February, and Andreeva leading it into, again, Indian Wells, where she does the exact same thing. Like, even the losses, you're right, the Zarazua one felt pronounced. The Siegemund loss at Wimbledon, you have to throw in the fact she had the flu, and you could see visibly she was ill out on court fighting herself, and it's
Siegemund.
Yeah, she made quarters Roland Garros. Obviously, again, semis Indian Wells, quarters Madrid, quarters Montreal. Loses in 3 sets to Rybakina in Cincy round of 16. There's not a lot of bad results. I agree. I don't know what narrative or who these people are saying she had a bad season, but those people are dumb.
No, I'm not. I think people have been saying she had a better season. Yeah. No, if anything, you're mad at me because I'm saying people have been talking about how consistent her year was, and I'm saying I feel like she has had more consistent seasons than this one without the slam. I think the fact that she won the slam has made the rest of everything else look a lot better.
If that's the argument, she has been better in other years in totality. Although, you look at the numbers, the 37 wins for her, second most for her in a single season. Trails just 2016, where she won 47. Win percentage 74% is the best of her career. 11-0 stretch to start your season will certainly help you numbers-wise the rest of the way from that win percentage standpoint. Only 13 losses, though.
Where she was a factor more at more tournaments. I think coming into the grass court season, she usually wins one of those warm-ups. She's won Cincinnati. Just was not necessarily so much of the hype, to the extent that there was hype coming into Wimbledon and US Open, 2 tournaments that I think she thinks she can win, were based off of the fact that she won Australia, not because she had been playing that recently coming into that tournament.
Yeah. I'm still an A. Like
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, you can't take away that. You can't take away that title.
And it's not an A- either. It's an A, because it's like 30 years old as a man who turned 30 this year. I get it. Where you're like, okay, athletically, I don't know how many more years I'm going to have at this level. Doesn't mean she's done with her career anytime soon. Her game feels like one that will age well because it's so power centric. But
yeah, it's how long she wants to play.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about retirement. It's all.
But like, here's the good news. Now everything else is gravy. And when you have a season like that where now the rest of your career is just like, who cares? I won my major. I know how good I am. Like, everything else is just, again, gravy. A.
What would she rather have, a Grand Slam title or an A from the Crack Rackets podcast, or an A- from the Crack Rackets podcast?
You know what? Both are available. Yeah, so it's fine. We'll give her a firm A here, and again, second tour finals for her. That number's too low. Is she a Hall of Famer? We can save that discussion for December, DK, if that works for you. Next up.
Fun fact: do you know who she beat at her last WTA finals? I think it's her only win.
I'm gonna say Meskina.
No, it's Meskina, babe.
Oh, it's just because I figured this was the context of it. Wait, 17. Hold on, let me think of the field. You're right. I just talked through the field. Oh, 16. You're right. I'm gonna say Kerber.
Her one win was over Dominika Sibylkova, who went on to win the title.
Okay, well, look, that's humanity.
It was like day one too, and it was like, Sibylokova's not going to do anything this week.
Foreshadowing, DK. Yes. Foreshadowing.
Again, qualifying scenarios, the best part of the finals.
Who'd have thunk it? 9 years later, there she'd be winning her first Australian Open title. Yeah. All right. Next up, the 31-year-old Jessica Pegula, who, again, fascinating how to contextualize her 2025 season. A 31-year-old, fifth in the rankings, seventh overall, seventh yearly ELO, 51 wins, that's fourth most. 10-4 at the majors, tied for eighth. She wasn't great there until she had her U.S. Open semifinal run, where, again, she lost 4 points in a deciding set on serve and lost the set to Sabalenka. 45-14 against non-top 20 opponents. That's the second most wins. 6-7 against the top 20, tied for 15th most. Not great. 3-5 against the top 10, tied for 16th most. Again, not great. Did win 3 titles: Bad Hamburg, Charleston, Austin. Made finals in Wuhan, Miami, and Adelaide. 10 quarterfinals in 22 events. Can't accuse Jessica Pegula of not going out there and playing. The big wins, of course, she beat Sabalenka in Wuhan to get that win after losing in the U.S. Open. God, did that one have to feel good. The Kirkland brand version of what Anismiova did with Swiatek at the majors. Of course, she also beat Swiatek in the Bad Hamburg final. Like, don't sleep on that win. Impressive to beat one of those top two in a final, whether it's Sabalenka or Swiatek. That matters from a confidence perspective. You know, again, fourth career Tour Finals appearance. They've all been consecutive, that they've come in her age at 28, 29, 30, and 31 seasons. You don't see that anymore in professional tennis. And yet, what's the memorable run? What are we going to remember from Jessica Pegula about this 2025 season? I think that's a fair question that begins to wonder, how do you evaluate this year in its totality? What is its grade? What say you, DK?
Well, I think I've been very nice so far. I've given out all A's.
Me too.
So I feel like it's time to create a bit of distance between the tiers here. And I think if you ask me what I will remember from Pegula this year, it will be the fact that she lost 4 points on serve in the third set of her U.S. Open semifinal to Aryna Sabalenka and still lost the match. And then yes, she did win that Wuhan match that I don't know if I count, because not that I count. I don't know if I count it, but clearly, I think there was a bit going on with Sabalenka, maybe mentally, just the pressure of being, Wuhan's favorite daughter in the absence of Zheng Qinwen. I don't know. And certainly, I don't know if Pegula comes away and be like, well, I beat her in Wuhan. I don't know if Pegula's too real and too grounded to put too much stock into anything. So I don't feel that bad, not being dismissive, but not, reading too much into it as well. I think based on the upswing from U.S. Open into the WTA Finals, I'm inclined to give her a B. I think without that, I probably would have given her a B-, just because, again, she set the bar at Slam final last year, and we were hoping for maybe at least another semifinal, maybe another final. We got the semifinal finally, at the U.S. Open, but it was just, a real rough road getting there. So, and one of those players like Keys, where you're like, how much longer are you going to keep doing this? You just wonder what's the end game for some of these players who are in these positions where they're getting into their 30s, and what is the next step? Do they reinvest and work harder, or do they decide, I've had a really good career, maybe this is time for me to step back? And Pegula and Keys both, to varying degrees, have decided to keep pressing forward, and so I give her credit for that. But on the season on the whole, I think it's a solid B.
Well, that's part of my argument in favor of Jessica Pegula is, again, 31 years old. She made a 4th consecutive tour final. She played 22 events this year. It's like, okay, especially because she did struggle at the majors. Those first 3 of the year, there's just not a significant result to turn to. She had to chase those points elsewhere. She gets a couple of 500 titles. That early season Austin title just suspended her up the rankings when she needed it because the other results weren't there. She also had 1,000,000 points to defend on the North American hard courts, right? Canada, Cincinnati, U.S. Open last year. She didn't defend any of them until she made that U.S. Open semifinal, and that it was a catalyst for at least something down the season's home stretch in Asia. Needed it. I did my preseason predictions. Here's some math for you, DK. I know you love when I go mathematics on you. There are only 8 spots in the Tour Finals. If we're going to have a newcomer in the Tour Finals, one of the 8 players from the previous fields has to be eliminated. I imagine many others circled Pegula as one of those spots that felt vulnerable to start this 2025 season. If I was going to slot in Anisimova, I probably would have put her in the Pegula or Paolini slots. Pegula defied those expectations, and despite only 10 wins at the majors, still put together a top 8 resume. And that's a testament to who she is as a competitor as well. 9th in hold percentage, 17th in break percentage. I went B+. I probably should have gone B. I had B for a while, but then I was feeling really rosy about all of these grades. And again, these are your Tour finalists. The grades can only be so low for any of them. I'm fine with a B. I slightly lifted up to B+ because of how she has finished her season as strong as she has. If she wins a Tour Finals, again, I would be shocked. But I'm going to go sound B+ for my Pegula grade. Final word on her belongs to you.
Yeah, I think this is the first player we've discussed where it would be a little surprising if she won the WTA Finals. The rest of them, I think if you can make a solid argument for really any of the preceding ones, even Keys, to be like, well, Keys caught fire, she won the WTA Finals, not a surprise. But for Pegula to do it, that would really be, it would be the zenith of her career to this point. I mean, yes, the U.S. Open final, but to win the WTA Finals, that's one of those, signature results that she does not have yet. And so for her to do would be crazy and amazing, but not something I'm banking on by any stretch of the imagination.
Very fair. And again, 4 straight, that is not something to just lay off to the side as unimpressive. 4 straight top 8 finishes. It's the equivalent of 4 straight years All-Pro, 4 straight years first team All-Selection, whatever that sport may be. Just remarkably impressive what the American has done down the back half of her career. Remarkably impressive to me how Jasmine Paolini finished her 2025 season. And, again, for Jasmine Paolini, who to me was my biggest question mark, probably even more so than Pegula entering this season, of there's just no way after making 2 slam finals last year, this is going to sustain, right? Well, this year, she was 8-4 at the majors. Didn't make it past a 4th round. I don't know if she made a single 4th round. There were a bunch of 3-set losses for her at the majors in 3rd rounds. I think she lost the first 2 3rd rounds, Australia, French Open consecutively to, and the French Open was the 4th round, French Open was the 3rd round, where she lost to Svitolina. 4th round? 4th round, Thank you, DK. But back-to-back 3-set losses to Svitolina, 2nd round Wimbledon, 3rd round U.S. Open. Didn't defend her finals, and yet wins Rome. Cincinnati final. She's 46-18 overall in the year, 7th most wins. 8-4 at the majors, was tied for 17th most, but she was 36-10 against non-top 20 opponents. 10 top 20 wins, tied for 4th most. 5 top 10, tied for the 7th most. She beats Swiatek in Wuhan, beats Gauff in Cincy, Rome, and Stuttgart. Got the win over Pegula, in the Billie Jean King Cup final, which DK doesn't care about in the slightest, as we learned earlier. No, just kidding. But obviously is able to lead her country to back-to-back Billie Jean King Cup titles. Matters to Italian tennis fans everywhere. Certainly back-to-back Tour Finals appearances for her, DK. I'm shocked. I couldn't believe it was going to happen. It just proves last year was real. And to me, given I saw her being one of, again, only 10 spots. You have to find new spots in the top 10 if you want new players. Hers was one I was circling more than any. I was wrong. For me, based on how wrong I was, based on her matching, to some extent, what she did last year, I have to go A-. Back-to-back Tour Finals. The only person who believed in her is, what's his name? Alex at the WTA. And I've been looking for that article forever. Who's the guy who said,
Alex McPherson.
Yeah, Alex McPherson is the only one who saw this coming. I did not. I go A minus.
Yeah, no, I'm not giving her an A minus. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I mean, like, look, I mean, if you asked Jasmine if she'd rather make another slam final or win Rome, I'm sure she would pick Rome. You know, I'm sure that was like an amazing moment for her. And rather than like plummet, which I think people assumed would happen after last year, she stabilized. Like I don't think in some ways I think the totality of highs were still higher last year because she still made 2 slam finals. But like winning Rome and getting that like triumphant, almost comical win over Iga Swiatek in Asia, like 2 really huge moments from her. I struggled to count that many others. Yes, she did. She made the Cincy final, obviously, but like, you know, like I think for her, you know, like if Pegula's a B, that's the question. Is like, did she have a better year than Pegula? I guess she did. So I would give her maybe a B plus, but I don't love that either because I still feel like there should be more distance between the A's and the B's. But I think given the fact that she won the 1000 title, she got that hilarious one over Iga. It was like what, 6-1, 6-2, like it was just not close. Like it's just like wacky. I would give her a B plus.
Fair. If you want to knock it to a B plus, for me, this had to do with expectations of what I thought. And again, I saw a clear plummet coming. I was very thoroughly wrong about that. And given the additional burden of expectations that come with the rankings she had to start the season inside the top 8, and knowing that there were 2 slam finals looming on her resume to come off of it at some point, how well spread out that success was. Again, every portion of the calendar, whether it's Rome, whether it's the Cincy final, whether it's what she's done here at the end of the year. She's pretty good in February, I thought, as well. What'd she do? Oh, round of 16 Dubai, round of 16 Doha, not great, but did go semifinals Miami. Again, the slam losses, Rakhimova's impeachable, but Svitolina's Svitolina Vondrousova. Other than that, like I don't have any problems with any of those losses. Yeah, under 8 wins is not enough for someone who's a tour finalist at the majors. Like, you can't be averaging a 3rd-round appearance across your 4 majors and a lack of quarterfinals in any of them. That stings. I can live with B+. I'm fair to meet in the middle.
Look, I mean, she finished at number 4 last year. When the question coming in was, is she a top 4 player? And I think the answer to that question is no. But is she a top 8 to 12 player? Yes. And that's... You know, it could have been her. It could have been Andreeva. Like if she did not make the WTA finals and Andreeva did, I don't think people would be like banging down the door, like justice for Paolini's year. Like I think that's also a question there. So again, these players, you know, we're not seeing. I mean, I don't want to put a jinx on anybody, but like we haven't really seen like the sort of precipitous downfalls that I think we're somewhat used to from players who achieve these high highs and then really have to climb back down the mountain. Like. They're like maybe climbing down a few feet, and then they're finding another mountain to climb right away.
Osaka, Andreescu, and Kenin so thoroughly skewed like the perception because all of them have had such massive successes, and then all of them immediately like fell off so quickly. Jabeur has even had some injuries as well. Krejcikova has been a roller coaster of a ride when she's healthy, when she's not. You're right, like the steadiness of a Paolini, the steadiness of a Pegula. And by the way, the value of having like those number 6 and 7 players in the world who you can just like count on, pencil them into significant stages of tournaments. It's nice. It's nice to have those players. And you're right, that's probably where Paolini settles, in that 6 to 12 range, far more than the top 4 ranking that she was able to pick up earlier. But like, that's a hell of a player. This player is going to be making millions during the prime of their career and probably won't need a second job when all things are done. I just never saw this from Paolini. I thought the serve was going to be too big of a liability, and it's just not. And that was my case for A-. It's like, okay, she really is one of the 6 to 12 best players in the world, higher than my expectations. I'm going to knock it down to B+ so we can meet in the middle.
I mean, now I'm just sad that Osaka and Andreescu aren't at the WTA finals. I wasn't thinking of them, and now I am, and now it's kind of like bummed me out.
Well, you know,
move on, I suppose.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Well, then, last but not least, here on our grading scale, DK, our final participant, the last player through to these WTA Tour Finals, it's the 26-year-old Elena Rybakina. Another one of those, what do you value? And we talked about her a little bit earlier in this show, so we can go through this one a little quicker. Age 26, number 6 in the world, 4th by ELO, 4th by yearly ELO. Her 54 total wins, 3rd most. 11-4 at the slams. Like, but what, you know, the most memorable thing for her at the majors this year was for sure the 3-set loss to Swiatek at Roland Garros, or the fact that she was a part of that
She should have won.
Or the fact that she's a part of the Keys track in Australia. 46-9 against players ranked outside the top 20. She beat who she was supposed to beat for the most part. Most wins of anyone on tour. 8-10 against the top 20. That's 11th most. 6-6 against the top 10. Tied for 5th. But how much of that winning came in the second half, we'll talk about in a second. Ningbo, Strasbourg titles. She did make the quarters or further at 12 of the 21 events she played this season. She had 2 signature runs. Sabalenka Keys, whom she beat back-to-back in Cincinnati, and Paolini and Alexandrova, whom she beat back-to-back in Ningbo, which is only significant because her season was on the line. She had to win those matches to keep her tour finals hopes alive. She does exactly that. Number 1 in hold percentage this season, 39th in break percentage. 3rd career tour finals. Again, she's made 3 in a row here, DK, and yet you talk about at the start of the season, all the losses that stacked up consecutively. 3 sets to Keys, 3 sets to Bencic, 3 sets to Andreeva, 3 sets to Kruger, losing to Andreescu, losing to Svitolina. Like, she was just on the wrong end of every signature matchup she played for the first 7 months of the season. And then she wasn't, and we talked about it. Just stacked up all the hard courts results. Semis Washington, semis Montreal, semis Cincy, round of 16 U.S. Open, quarters Wuhan, title Ningbo, semis Tokyo. Steadied the ship, and as we discussed earlier, feels like she is a tour finals title away from being back to who she was. And yet, she has to do that to get back to who she was. That feels like a key bit of context, your evaluation of her season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Paolini-Rybakina dichotomy is interesting because, I think we give Paolini a lot more grace because it's just like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be doing any of this. Exactly. Good for you. Whereas, you look at Rybakina, and she should probably be the 3rd best player in the world, if not competing for number 1 and number 2. And it just hasn't been the case for the last several years. And really nothing from this year screams top 3. Most of it doesn't really even scream top 5 or top 8. So, I'm inclined to give her a C+ for the season. I mean, I think that's again, if she was to win the WTA Finals, which again, 6 out of the 8 here could very easily win the WTA Finals, and I wouldn't be totally shocked if she does. Then you reevaluate this. You reevaluate the season. You bring her back into the Bs, probably like a BB+. I still wouldn't give her an A just based off the WTA Finals, unless she triple bagels everybody to win the title. But she just has so many weapons, has so much talent and ability that has just been, relative to what she has, it's been kind of squandered over the last couple of years. And, evidently she's in a better rhythm now. I hope it lasts, and I hope everything is well with her, but it's just not been a year to remember. I can't, I can't even think of a signature win from Rybakina or even a signature match.
Sabalenka, Cincinnati.
Yeah, but
Paolini, Ningbo.
Shut up. I didn't miss you.
Elimination match.
Yeah, we talk about Big Brother. We talk about players who have to comp out.
Yeah, exactly.
Competitions and yes, that's impressive, but is that
she won the veto competition in Ningbo, literally.
Yeah, listen, she won her way to safety and would have been eliminated had she not won it. But
100%.
Then where are you? What is your strategic acumen if you need to rely on competitions to win? And she certainly could have been winning competitions earlier. She doesn't. It's not for lack of talent. So it's tough because she should be one of the best in the world. She is not, and even making this finals does not. She's among the best, but she should be so much higher. So I guess for looking back at the year, it's a C+.
Yeah, she has won 6 of her last 8 top 20 matchups, meaning before that she was 2-8. Here's my case. Had she flipped even 2 of those first 10 matchups against the top 20, and again, there's a 3-set loss to Keys in Australia, 3 sets to Andreeva in Dubai, 3 sets to Swiatek at Roland Garros, 3 sets, we forget about the Sabalenka 3-set 7-6 in the third in Berlin where she had all those match points and wasn't on the winning end of them. Had she flipped 2 of those, I think the context of this season for Rybakina is so different. The problem is you can't play the what-if game. She lost all of her signature matches to start the season. And to your point, a quarterfinal win over Sabalenka in Cincinnati is very good. For someone of Rybakina's caliber, it should not qualify as your signature win on the season. And again,
she like make the U.S. Open semis after beating
exactly.
Sabalenka. You know, what did Sabalenka do after she lost that match? She won the U.S. Open.
Exactly.
So it's a very different scale.
If she beats Rybakina Vondrousova match I was at in New York that Sunday night, and then maybe beats Sabalenka in that quarterfinals, now we're talking a different game story. But again, she was just on the wrong end of so many of these signature matchups all season long. And yet, why it gets resurrected to a B, only a B, let the record show, not going any higher than that, is I needed this from DC onwards. I needed, all right, I'm going to make the semifinals of every event. I'm going to play every event. I am going to thrust myself back into the mix for an event like these tour finals and just say I am still amongst the best of the best. And she did that. And she played her way in. And that accomplishment is enough for me, sprinkled in with the signature victories, lowercase letter signature, that it's a B. It's a sound B, where it's like, okay, much like Swiatek, you thought the floor had fallen out completely from underneath Elena Rybakina. And yet she's still in a season where it feels that way, finishes third in total victories and inside the tour finals. If this is the floor, it's not horrible. But this was the floor season. And so it can't be higher than a B, but like again, has steadied the ship and salvaged things enough to keep herself in the ballgame.
I mean, it's like it's a shame like we don't have Zhuhai anymore. Like
Sure.
Rybakina had like a Zhuhai year. I don't know if she had a Riyadh year, but she did, evidently. So, I mean, that's, again, she's someone who very easily could win this WTA Finals and then be among the top contenders to win the Australian Open, and all of a sudden things look very different. She is that level of talent, and we have a plethora of those players among the top 8, just like an abundance of talent who could win this title and begin the 2026 season, which starts in 5 minutes, you know, among the top
now that we've
contenders
gone this long on the podcast.
I know, I feel like we're already, Happy New Year, by the way.
Very fair. Yeah, I'm going solid B. If you want to say B minus, that's fine. It's not a B plus.
I said C
season.
plus.
Yeah, if you want to go C plus to B, fine range. Yeah, I feel like the equivalent of my B is a real teacher's C plus. So I don't hate your grade. Look, again, talk about someone who can also, though, completely change the narrative with a win of this tour finals. As we discussed earlier, there's no one who can do so more, and that, DK, is where I want to start our final topic here for today's podcast. It is great to have you back accordingly so we can flush all these things out with requisite depth. And let me tell you, a lot of YouTube content coming your way, coming out of this one, so appreciate you taking
like
the
and
time.
subscribe.
Yeah, exactly. Most on the line entering these tour finals. We've hinted at it all podcast long, but again, who has the most on the line, the most to gain from winning these tour finals? You can tell me. I'm going to give you my list. You can tell me if they belong higher or lower. Does that work for you?
Sure.
All right. Rybakina, for all of the aforementioned reasons, she wins this. She's back. Like when you're listing your contenders, she has to be spoken at the Australian Open, and it would just be a complete Overton window shift for where she's felt all season.
She has the most to gain. Absolutely.
Yeah, most to gain. I should have said most to gain, not most on the line. You're right, because it is still a tour finals. No one really has anything on the line.
But also players, some of them have something to lose. Like I could see people being very annoying if Aryna doesn't win this WTA Finals and say Iga does. And it's like, Iga had the better year. She won the Slam and won the WTA Finals. And it's like, I don't want to have this debate. Like it's not totally unfair, but it's just like
you're right,
guys.
And by the way, that's why Sabalenka's 2. Because, I want you to know, that's why she was 2 on my list. For everything you just said, plus everything I alluded to earlier, she wins this. 2025 Sabalenka versus 22 Iga is a real debate, one I'm sure we will have in December, DK. So she's 2 on my list. Anisimova 3, because, again, I think she wins this. A lot of people.
She certainly has a lot to gain, yeah.
Yeah, I just think people will say she is. I do think over a third of pundits will select her to win the Australian Open accordingly if she wins this tour finals. Swiatek 4th. Just given what the group looks like, if she can run through Keys, Anisimova, and Rybakina and then somehow still win this event, like it's just like, fuck the first half. She's back. Yeah.
I think then at that point you really do start to evaluate her. And then I do think that player of the year discussion will really pick up, because then you'll have, 2 pretty big data points, whereas right now you have Wimbledon, you have Cincinnati, but really it's just Wimbledon, and if she collects that and then you're able to really string together a second half of the season narrative that's very easy to write, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I have Pegula 5th, just because what if she wins this? And it's like, okay, maybe it's not over. Maybe like she does. I'll pencil in 26 Australia, one more year of slams to say the window's open. She's got one more shot.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if someone like Pegula wins the WTA finals, it would be very much like, wow, this is like when Caroline Garcia won. It's sort of just like, oh, this is like your signature. This is your signature title. Like, we've had quite a few of those. We've had the Svitolina win. We've had Sapokova win. Yes, among the men, of course. So like a lot of like finalists and semifinalists. Surprise. Did Goffin win the ATP finals?
He might have lost to Dimitrov in that final.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a weird year. I think
that was one you've Men in Black mind wiped off of from your brain.
Like very few lifetime achievement winners go on to win the next, like Wozniacki did. That was shocking. You're like, oh wow, she really like parlayed that. But I feel like for the most part, like a lot of players have won this title and kind of like ridden off into the sunset, so to speak.
Yeah, very fair. Everyone after Swiatek is relatively insignificant in terms of on the line here. Like I have Pegula 5, Gauff 6. She won this. There's nothing Gauff can do. Paolini, if she wins it, that's awesome. But like, it's still not. I'm pretty stubborn. It's not going to change. Keys,
another
same thing.
It's
just like exactly. I know Gauff, Paolini, Keys. Like nothing changes for them. I think litmus test wise. So put them in any order.
Probably put Keys at the head of that pack, if only because it kind of resets like her motivation perhaps for next season. Like if she like goes 0-3 here, or like is injured and retires after a match, then it's like, oh, how much longer are you going to play? But if she were to win the WTA finals, and it's like, wow, I have like basically a whole nother year of like top 10 ranking points. Like even if I lose early in Australia, I'll probably be like in contention.
Let me cook.
That's like a year of safety. Effectively, it's a year of being HOH. Like you just like take that and run with it. Whereas like some of the other players, with Coco's in like the best, like kind of like the best of all possible worlds. Like if she wins, amazing. If she doesn't, she's still young and she's working on things. Like it's sort of like an 100%. Amazing spot to be in if you're Coco Gauff right now. Quietly
Anisimova too. Like who cares? It's the same thing. It's just the upside for her with a win is that much higher. All right. Those are the expectations most on the line. Last thing we have to do before I can let you go, DK, because what sort of podcast would a preview podcast be if we didn't offer some predictions? I've got the groups. Let's go through. Group graph, Sabalenka, Gauff, Pegula, Paolini. That's a fucking gift to Aryna Sabalenka. I have her, and I'll take Gauff getting through. Give me your 2.
Yeah, it's got to be Aryna and Coco, and I'm looking forward to seeing that round robin match because I feel like it'll be a litmus test for both players on where they're at mentally and technically. And if Aryna like really comes out of the gates, or if Coco's not serving well, like that'll really probably tell the story for both players. So that's I hope that one is like first or second. But I think it might probably be the second one. They'll probably have both of them play the undercards, and then the winner, then they play that second one. So we'll see.
Yeah. What a gift. That is a gift for Sabalenka because Swiatek's group is literally Serena Williams Power Tennis Country Club. It's also Group Serena Williams, Swiatek, Anisimova, Keys, Rybakina. Murderer's row, especially if we get the best version of Keys, which seems unlikely, but God, if we get the best version of her, fireworks every match. You can go first. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just like looking at him like, do I have a prediction? I don't. I mean, I do, and it's so boring. I'm going to go Swiatek and Anisimova, but like, I feel horrible about that. I think Rybakina is probably the hottest hand, but man, Anisimova is so confident. Swiatek's Iga, and like, it would be so fitting for Iga to win this event just so that the fans can be like, she's got her Player of the Year case. Like, that's just, the tennis gods have that lingering for us.
Yeah, I mean, again, you look at those qualification scenarios. If you're Rybakina, you probably need the win over Maddie for sure. Yeah. And then, you win a set against Iga. You don't necessarily even have to beat her. And then, it's a toss-up against Amanda for that third match. Like, I could see her and Amanda.
Is my hot take, if Iga goes through this gauntlet and goes undefeated, beating Anisimova, Keys, Rybakina, Gauff, and Sabalenka, is that the most impressive title of her career? Like, that's ridiculous.
Well, it depends on the conditions, and it depends on the quality of her opposition if they really show up. If they're like hitting a lot of errors, then no. But, I do think for as much as we talk about like, Iga could be overpowered, like she does play pretty well against those heavy hitting but inconsistent players. I think like Anisimova has really taken a step forward in her aggression. Obviously, Rybakina and Keys are like that 10 out of 10, the way that Sabalenka is. So if there are some mitigating factors, if Iga is feeling really confident, if she's serving well primarily, if her foot is, fully healthy from the U.S. Open, like those things will all combine for a potentially pretty good week for Iga. I certainly, she's my 2-3. I kind of just think that Rybakina with her momentum, it would really, so unless she's injured, it would really shock me if she doesn't make the semis, because I've just seen that movie so many times. You're number 8 in the race, you get in by the skin of your teeth, and then you just run the table through the first couple of days of the round robin. You don't always win, but like you do like really wreck the round robin phase. So I'm curious to see what she does.
I wanted to pick her, but I just think Anisimova is a primetime performer. I think Anisimova has Taylor Fritz energy, where it's just like this is what she lives for. It's I want to play the best. I want to beat the best. I think we get Sabalenka versus Anisimova, Gauff versus Swiatek in the semis. I've said this. I've made a pledge. I'm going to pick Sabalenka Swiatek to play in every final of the same event they're in until I get to see it happen. So I'm going to go Sabalenka Swiatek final. I do think Sabalenka wins this title. She is the sort of person who strikes me as I want this for the narrative as much as I want this for anything else sort of player who's keenly aware of those sorts of things. I'll take Sabalenka to win the event. Where's your brain?
Yeah, I mean, an Aryna-Amanda final would be amazing. I was there for the U.S. Open. It was just like, it was baffling because like I've never seen Aryna get overpowered but still like win. Like it was a mind-blowing like performance from the two players. So like I definitely want to see that again and see if Amanda can get revenge or if Aryna can end the year with the WTA Finals title. I feel like this is really the first time that she's coming into that finals with like a good head of steam, a good head on her shoulders, and can like really do some damage. You look back to like 2022, she's still figuring out the serve. 2023, all that Michigas in Mexico, and then last year she clinches year number 1 and really just like bye-bye, like just sort of like pieces out on the rest of the tournament. So I'm curious to see what she does this year. I do think she is the favorite, and then she ends the year with like I don't know what, like 12,000 ranking points, like another like crazy ranking point total.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun field. We said it at the start. Certainly the best of the 2020s. Maybe the best since 2014. You might even want to be able to go beyond that if you like, just pound for pound, each and every of our 8 participants. And feels like we still have some stuff on the line as well. So certainly looking forward to the event. I hope after 100 minutes of podcast, you all feel prepared for the event. And certainly, again, no other person would tolerate such nonsense other than you, DK. Let the people know, what do you guys at .com got going on? What can they look out for you down the season's home stretch?
Oh, we got a whole coterie of WTA Finals content. We've got expert picks from the TC Talent. We've got some Finals fantasy. I made the TC Talent pick between like number 1 and number 2, number 3 and number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, like like one of each to get like a Finals fantasy team. So I got some early responses from Coco Vandeweghe and Vicky Duval, hoping to get a few more, and obviously some expert picks from us as well, and preview content, post-match content, quote-driven content, everything, all the kinds of content you'd want from Riyadh. And I'm sure you can stream it on our TC app. Like and subscribe there as well. And all my work will be on tennis.com, and my socials are DKTNNS. That's DKTNNS.
I love it. Well, DK, it is always great to have you, and I will know I have made it when I get an email for TC Talent to submit my picks.
That's a Mimi issue. That's not a me problem.
Mimi's been sending me a lot of emails of late, so there's a chance I get that email.
Shout out to Mimi.
Shout out to Mimi. She's
a magician.
Love Mimi. Big fan. Talked to her on the phone last week. I was like, got a call, and it said from, and I'm not going to give away that information, but caller ID, it was suggested to me that it was Mimi, and I was like, it's Mimi? I was like, no way. So shout out Mimi Fotopoulos before we go. Shout out to you, and a shout out, as always, to the tireless efforts of our super producer, Daniel Westhoff. What sort of a job does he do, DK?
Oh, I've been waiting to say this. He just does a editing job.
Day in, day out, makes everything possible. A shout out to him. And again, you've already listened to all 100 minutes, but if for some reason you missed a segment or you want to go back and watch one specifically, Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. You can see us there. We've divided all of these segments into different parts as well by player. And so, again, you can hold us accountable, I suppose, to our predictions, hold us accountable to our evaluations of the season. And more than anything, we want to hear from you. What were we right about? Where do you disagree most? That's the fun of having a show like this. Of course, with all of that said, for the fantastic David Kane, our super producer Daniel Westhoff, our friends at the Laurel Springs School, from all of us here at both Cracked Racquets and the Believe Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. DK, 103 minutes later, what do we tell our listeners?
Oh, that's the break!
And we will see you all tomorrow. You're the best, DK. Thank you.
До свидания.